October 1942. Guadalcanal. The jungle breathed. Hot, wet, alive with sounds that had no names. Sounds that made men grip their rifles tighter in the darkness. Sergeant Marcus Brennan Mack, to everyone who knew him, sat on the edge of a foxhole cleaning a Browning machine gun for the third time that day. His hands moved with practiced precision, each motion deliberate, each touch revealing what the weapon needed before it could ask. 27 years old, Buffalo-born, Italian blood running through his veins like the Niagara he'd grown up beside. But here on this godforsaken island in the South Pacific, none of that mattered. Here only one thing mattered, keeping the guns running. The jungle humidity had already claimed 2 of his machine guns that week. Rust crept into every joint, every crevice. Metal that should have lasted years was aging in months. But Mac understood metal the way some men understood horses or cards. He could feel it, sense its moods, know when it was about to fail. "Sarge." Mac looked up. Private Declan Ashford stood there, 19 years old and still looking younger. They called him Doc, though he'd never finished his medical degree. Harvard dropout turned Marine, scared but trying not to show it. "What is it, Doc?" "Letter came for you. From home." Mac took the envelope, recognized his brother's handwriting immediately. His stomach tightened. Letters from Anthony only came when something was wrong. He opened it slowly, read the words twice to make sure he understood. Mom was sick. Bad sick. Cancer, the doctors said. Maybe 6 months. Maybe less. Anthony was asking no begging Mac to request compassionate leave. Come home. See her while there was still time. Mac folded the letter, slipped it into his breast pocket, right over his heart, where it would stay. "Bad news?" Doc asked. "Family stuff. You okay?" Mac looked past him toward Henderson Field, the airstrip they'd captured 3 months ago. The airstrip they'd been bleeding for ever since. 20,000 Japanese soldiers were somewhere out in that jungle planning their next attack. And if Henderson Field fell, everything fell. "I'm fine," Mac said. "Go check on the ammunition count. We're going to need every round tonight." Doc hesitated, then nodded and left. Mac sat there, the weight of the letter pressing against his chest. He could go home, request leave, hold his mother's hand one last time, tell her he loved her. But if he left, who would keep the guns running? Who would make sure these boys, these scared, brave boys, had the firepower they needed to survive? The choice wasn't really a choice at all. He picked up the machine gun and went back to work. 30 meters away, Corporal Henrik Castellano was explaining the finer points of sustained fire to a replacement who'd arrived that morning. "See, the barrel gets hot." Ironside was saying, his New York accent still thick after 10 years in the Marines. "Real hot. Hot enough to cook eggs on. You fire too long without switching the whole gun warps, then you got nothing but a 30-pound paperweight." Henrik Ironside Castellano, 32 years old, built like a fire hydrant with the disposition of a patient schoolteacher. He'd been in the Marines since before most of these kids graduated high school. Married. 2 daughters back in Queens. Carried their picture in a waterproof pouch he checked every night before sleep. "How long can you fire before switching?" the replacement asked. "Depends. Humid like this. Maybe 200 rounds continuous. Then you swap. Mac taught me that. Mac knows machines better than anyone I ever met." The replacement glanced toward where Mac sat, silhouetted against the fading light. "That's Brennan. The guy who—" "Yeah, that's him. And you better hope he's on your gun crew, because when the shooting starts, he's the difference between living and dying." Ironside meant every word. He'd seen Mac save 3 different gun positions in the last month alone. Seen him fix a jammed feed mechanism in the middle of a firefight, hands moving like a surgeon's while bullets snapped overhead. But tonight, Ironside had a bad feeling. The kind of feeling that came from experience. The kind that settled in your bones like rain before a storm. "Something's coming," he said quietly. The replacement looked at him. "Sir, tonight, something big. I can feel it." Private Nathaniel Hargrove was writing a letter home to Kansas when Mac found him. "Nate." The kid looked up. 21 years old, corn-fed farm boy with hair so blonde it was almost white. He'd joined up the day after Pearl Harbor, leaving behind wheat fields and a girl named Mary who wrote him every week. "Hey, Sarge. How you holding up?" "Fine, I guess." Nate set down his pencil. "Writing to Mary, trying to explain what this place is like without scaring her half to death." Mac sat down beside him. "Good luck with that." "You ever scared Sarge?" The question caught Mac off guard. Not because it was unusual, plenty of men asked that, but because of the way Nate asked it. Genuine. desperate for the right answer. "Every damn day," Mac said. "But you don't show it. Showing it don't help nobody. You're scared, fine. Be scared. But don't let it stop you from doing your job." Nate nodded slowly. "My dad used to say something like that, about working the farm. Being tired don't mean the cows stop needing milked." "Your dad sounds smart." "He was. Died when I was 16. Tractor rolled on him." Nate's voice went distant. "I found him. Took me 2 hours to get him out from under it. He was already gone." Mac put a hand on the kid's shoulder. "You did what you could." "Sometimes I wonder if I did. If I'd been faster, maybe." "Nate, listen to me. You can't change the past. All you got is right now, right here, and right now I need you sharp. I need you ready. Can you do that?" Nate looked at him, really looked at him, then nodded. "Yeah, Sarge, I can do that." "Good man." Mac stood to leave, but Nate called after him. "Sarge, if something happens tonight, if I don't make it, you'll make it. But if I don't, tell Mary I was thinking about her, about home, about the life we were going to have." Mac's throat tightened. "I'll tell her, but you're going to tell her yourself when you get home." He walked away before his voice could betray him. The briefing came at 1800 hours. Lieutenant Colonel Lewis Parker stood in front of a map that showed their defensive perimeter around Henderson Field. Bull Parker, a man who'd earned his nickname by being too stubborn to die in 3 previous wars. "Gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying across the assembled Marines, "intelligence indicates the Japanese are preparing a major offensive. We're talking everything they got left. 20,000 men, maybe more." Silence, heavy and complete. "They're gonna hit us tonight. Multiple positions, but the main thrust," he tapped the map, "right here, Bloody Ridge." That's where Mac's section was positioned. 5 machine gun crews, 75 Marines, defending the most direct route to Henderson Field. "If they break through here," Bull continued, "they'll roll straight to the airfield, and if they take the airfield, we lose everything." He looked directly at Mac. "Sergeant Brennan, your section is the cork in the bottle. You hold, we all hold. You break, we're finished." "Questions?" Mac stood. "Ammunition situation, sir." Bull's jaw tightened. 10,000 rounds per gun position. I know it's not enough for sustained action, but it's what we got. And spare barrels?" A pause. 2 per section. Total. Mac did the math instantly. 5 guns, 2 spare barrels. If the fight went long, if the heat and humidity did what they always did. "Sir, that's not enough. If we're firing sustained—" "I know it's not enough, Sergeant, but there's no more to give. Make it work." Make it work. As if willpower alone could change the laws of physics and metal fatigue. "Yes, sir," Mac said. After the briefing, Bull pulled him aside. "Mac, I'm not going to lie to you. This is bad. Real bad. If things go south, if it looks like they're going to overrun you, I can call in artillery on your position, give the rest of us time to regroup." Mac understood what he was saying, understood the weight of it. "That won't be necessary, sir." "You don't know that." "Yes, sir, I do. Because we're not breaking. We're not running. We're going to hold that ridge, and when the sun comes up, we're still going to be there." Bull looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "God help you, son." "He already has, sir. He gave me the best damn Marines in the Pacific." 2100 hours. 3 hours until midnight. Mac walked his gun line one last time. 5 positions, 5 Browning M1917 machine guns. Each weapon a masterpiece of American engineering. Each one capable of firing 500 rounds per minute. Each one also capable of jamming, overheating, or breaking at exactly the wrong moment. He checked each gun personally, tested the recoil mechanism, examined the feed pulse, ran his fingers along the barrels, feeling for imperfections invisible to the eye. At position 3, he found what he was looking for. "This gun's been overfiring," he told the crew chief. "See here, the barrel's already showing stress marks. We've been following doctrine, Sarge. Short bursts. Letting it cool between, I know, not your fault. It's the humidity, the heat. This jungle's eating our equipment faster than we can maintain it." He straightened. "Keep an eye on it. First sign of real trouble, you switch to your spare barrel. Don't wait." "Yes, Sarge." He moved to position 4, found similar issues. By the time he finished his inspection, he'd identified problems in 3 of the 5 guns, problems that would only get worse under sustained fire. Doc found him staring at the weapons with an expression somewhere between concern and calculation. "What's wrong?" "Everything," Mac said quietly.
3 guns already showing fatigue, 2 spare barrels total, and we're about to fight the biggest battle of our lives. Can you fix them? Fix them, no. Manage them. Maybe. If I'm lucky. If I'm fast. If 100 things go right, that probably won't. Doc shifted uncomfortably. So what do we do? Mac looked at him. At this kid who'd given up a future as a doctor to carry a rifle in hell. Who was scared but stayed anyway. Who asked questions and actually listened to the answers. We do our jobs, Doc. We keep these guns running as long as humanly possible.
And when they break, because they will break, we figure out how to make them work anyway. How do you do that? Make broken things work? Mac smiled, though there was no humor in it. You learn. You improvise. You refuse to accept that something can't be done. He paused. My father was a tailor. Came over from Italy with nothing. Built a business fixing other people's clothes. Altering, mending, making old things useful again. He taught you that how to fix things. He taught me that everything can be fixed if you understand how it works. If you're willing to try solutions nobody else thought of. If you're stubborn enough to keep working when everyone else gives up. A distant rumble echoed across the jungle. Artillery. Japanese artillery. Ranging shots. Finding distances. They're coming soon, Doc said. Yeah, they are. Mac picked up his rifle. Get to your position. Stay low. Stay focused. And Doc. Yeah. When the shooting starts, don't freeze. I've seen you hesitate. Seen you think too much. Tonight you can't afford that. You see a target, you shoot it. You see a problem, you fix it. No thinking, just doing. Understand? Doc swallowed hard. I'll try. Don't try. Do. Mac's voice softened. You're going to be fine, kid. I'll make sure of it. He walked away before Doc could see the doubt in his eyes. 200 hours. Ironside found Mac near the ammunition dump doing inventory one more time. You're making me nervous, Ironside said. All this checking and double-checking. Good. You should be nervous. We all should. That bad? Mac set down his clipboard. Henrik, I'm going to be straight with you. We're undermanned, under-equipped, and about to face an enemy that outnumbers us 20-1. Our guns are already showing stress. We don't have enough spare parts. We don't have enough ammunition for a sustained fight. And if even one thing goes wrong, one gun jams at the wrong moment, one barrel fails, one feed mechanism breaks, we could lose this whole position in minutes. Ironside absorbed this. So why are you smiling? I'm smiling. Little bit. Corner of your mouth. Mac touched his face, surprised. Huh. Didn't realize. So why? Because despite all that, despite everything being wrong, I still think we can win. I think if we're smart, if we're lucky, if we're willing to do things nobody's ever tried before, we might just pull this off. You got a plan? I got the beginning of a plan. The rest I'll figure out when I need to. Ironside laughed. A real laugh. You know what? That's good enough for me. If Mac Brennan says we can win, then we can win. I didn't say we'd win. I said we might. Close enough. They stood there in companionable silence listening to the jungle. Somewhere out there, 20,000 Japanese soldiers were preparing to attack, checking their weapons, saying prayers to their ancestors, thinking about home, just like the Marines were doing. Henrik, Mac said quietly, if something happens to me tonight, stop. No, listen. If something happens, you take over. You keep these boys together. You keep the guns running. You do whatever it takes. Nothing's going to happen to you. You don't know that. I know you. You're too stubborn to die. Mac smiled. A real smile this time. From your mouth to God's ears. You religious, Mac? My mother is. She prays for me every day. I figure between her prayers and my stubbornness, I might just make it through this war. Ironside pulled out his waterproof pouch, showed Mac the picture inside. 2 little girls with dark curls and bright smiles, a woman with kind eyes. My daughters, Rose and Marie, 6 and 4. Beautiful family. They're why I fight. Not for flags or politicians. For them. So they can grow up in a world where they don't have to be scared. He tucked the picture away. What about you? Who do you fight for? Mac thought about his mother sick and dying. About his brother Anthony struggling to keep the family business alive. About all the letters he should have written and never did. I fight for the guy next to me, he said finally. For you. For Doc. For Nate. For every scared kid who signed up thinking war would be glorious and found out it's just mud and blood and trying not to die. That's good enough, Ironside said. Better than most reasons. Another rumble. Closer this time. The Japanese artillery was adjusting, finding its range. "Won't be long now," Mac said. "No, won't be long." They shook hands, held the grip for a moment longer than necessary. "See you on the other side," Ironside said. "See you on the other side." 2,300 hours, 1 hour to midnight. Nate couldn't stop his hands from shaking. He'd tried everything. Deep breaths, focusing on his rifle, thinking about Mary and Kansas and home. Nothing worked. The shaking just got worse. Mac appeared beside him like a ghost. "Hey, kid." "Jesus, Sarge, you scared me." "Sorry." Mac sat down. "How you doing?" "I'm okay." "Nate." "I'm scared shitless, Sarge. My hands won't stop shaking. My heart won't stop racing. I feel like I'm going to puke." "That's normal." "Normal, I feel like I'm falling apart." "You want to know a secret?" Mac leaned closer. "Every man on this line feels exactly the same way you do. Every single one. They're just better at hiding it. Even you. Especially me." Nate looked at him, searched his face for the lie, found only truth. "But you always seem so calm, so in control." "That's training. That's experience. That's knowing that if I show fear, every man watching me feels it twice as bad." Mac put his hand on Nate's shoulder. "You know what the difference is between a coward and a hero?" "What?" "Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They both feel the same fear, the same doubt, the same desire to run away and never look back. The only difference is what they do about it." "I don't want to be a coward." "Then don't be. When the shooting starts, when everything goes to hell, when every instinct tells you to run, don't. Stay. Fight. Protect the men beside you. That's all courage is. Doing the right thing when you're terrified." Nate's shaking began to slow. Not stop, but slow. "What if I freeze? What if I can't pull the trigger when I need to? Then I'll be there to remind you. I'll be right there, Nate. I won't let you fail. I won't let any of you fail. You can't be everywhere at once. Watch me." And despite everything, despite the fear and the coming battle and the certainty of death hanging over them all, Nate laughed. Actually laughed. "You're crazy, Sarge." "Probably, but I'm your kind of crazy." The moment was shattered by a sound that turned blood to ice. A sound like distant thunder, but sharper, closer, more focused. Artillery, lots of it, all firing at once. Mac was on his feet instantly. "Positions, everyone to positions." The night exploded. 230 hours. 30 minutes before midnight. The bombardment. The first shells screamed overhead and detonated in the jungle behind the Marine positions. Trees shattered, earth fountained skyward. The ground shook like a living thing trying to throw them off. Mac ran from position to position, checking his gun crews, making sure everyone was down, making sure no one was hit. The barrage intensified. 200 shells, 300. An endless rolling thunder that made thought impossible and fear inevitable. "Stay down!" Mac shouted, though his voice was lost in the chaos. "Heads down! Wait for it to pass!" A shell hit 20 meters from position 3. The explosion picked up a Marine and threw him like a rag doll. He landed hard, didn't move. Doc was already moving toward him, medic instincts overriding fear. "Doc, stay down!" But Doc kept going, reached the wounded Marine, checked for vitals, shook his head. Dead. They'd lost their first man, and the enemy hadn't even reached their lines yet. The bombardment lasted 20 minutes. 20 minutes of hell distilled into pure explosive force. When it finally stopped, the silence was so sudden it felt like another kind of violence. Mac's ears rang. His head throbbed. But his hands were steady as he moved down the line. "Check your weapons. Check your ammunition. Anything damaged, call it out now." Reports came back. Position 2 had taken shrapnel. Minor damage to the tripod. Fixable. Position 4 had lost a man. Everyone else was shaken but intact. 5 guns. 4 crews at full strength. 1 short, a man. Mac reorganized on the fly. Pulled a rifleman from the reserve and put him on position 4's gun. The kid looked terrified, but nodded. Ironside. "Yeah. Range markers. Make sure everyone remembers their distances." On it. The range markers were stakes they'd driven into the ground during daylight. 40 meters, 60 meters, 80. When the Japanese came, those markers would tell the gunners exactly where to aim for maximum effect. If the Japanese came? No. When? Mac checked his watch. 21:55 hours. Any minute now. He moved to the center position. His position. The one with the best field of fire and the most responsibility. Doc was there loading ammunition belts with shaking hands. "You okay?" Mac asked. "That Marine, the one who died."
I knew him. We played cards last week. He showed me pictures of his girlfriend.
Doc, look at me. Doc looked up. You can grieve later. Right now, I need you focused. Can you do that? Yeah, I can. Good, because here they come. From the jungle, a sound rose. At first, Mac thought it was the wind, then realized it was voices. Thousands of voices, all shouting the same word. Banzai! 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 Positions! Mac roared. Safety's off, pick your targets. The jungle erupted with movement. Hundreds of figures. No, thousands. Dark shapes against darker shadows. Running, screaming, coming on in a human wave that seemed endless. Wait for it, Mac said, his voice carrying across the line. Let them come. Let them reach the markers. The Japanese soldiers crossed the 80-meter line. Still running, still screaming. 70 meters. 60. Steady, Mac said. 50 meters. 40. Fire. 5 machine guns opened up simultaneously. The sound was apocalyptic. A wall of lead traveling at 2,000 feet per second, cutting through the darkness, cutting through men. The first rank of Japanese soldiers went down like they'd hit an invisible wall, then the second rank, then the third. Bodies piled on bodies. Blood turned the ground to mud. But they kept coming. For every man who fell, 2 more appeared. They jumped over their dead comrades, climbed over them, used them as cover, and kept advancing. Short bursts, Mac shouted. Don't overheat the barrels. Short bursts. His own gun roared. 20 rounds. Pause. 20 more. He could see the Japanese soldiers clearly now in the muzzle flashes. See their faces. Young faces. Determined faces. Faces that knew they were running toward death but ran anyway. A grenade exploded to his left. Shrapnel sang past his head. He ducked reflexively. Kept firing. Position 2. Shift fire left. They're flanking. The gun at position 2 swung. Caught a group of Japanese trying to move through the jungle. Cut them down. The attack went on for 15 minutes. 15 minutes of continuous fire. 15 minutes of watching men die by the dozens and knowing you were the one killing them. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The Japanese pulled back, melted into the jungle, left behind hundreds of dead. Silence crashed down, broken only by the moans of the wounded and the ringing in every Marine's ears. Cease fire, Mac called. Conserve ammunition. Reload. He checked his gun. The barrel was hot. Very hot, but still functional. Casualty report. The calls came back. Position 1, 2 wounded, no dead. Position 2, 1 dead, 1 wounded. Position 3, no casualties. Position 4, 3 wounded. Position 5, 1 wounded. 7 casualties total, against hundreds of Japanese dead. But this was only the first wave. Mac knew they all knew that more were coming. Ironside, how's your barrel temperature? Hot, still good but hot. Everyone else? Similar reports. Hot barrels, some overheating, but still functional, for now. Mac checked his watch. 22:15 hours. The night was just beginning. 22:45 hours. The second wave hit. Larger than the first. Angrier. The Japanese had learned. Instead of charging straight at the guns, they came from multiple angles. Probing, testing, looking for weak points. Mac coordinated the defense, directing fire, shifting guns to cover threats. His voice was hoarse from shouting, but he never stopped. Position 3's gun jammed. Mac saw it instantly, saw the gunner's frantic attempts to clear it, saw the feed mechanism locked up. He was moving before he thought about it. Ran in a crouch to position 3. Bullets snapped past him. A grenade exploded 10 meters away. He felt the concussion but didn't stop. Move! He shouted at the gunner. He dropped beside the weapon. Saw the problem immediately. A spent casing wedged in the ejection port, deformed from heat. His fingers worked, prying, pulling. The metal was hot enough to burn, but he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The casing came free. The bolts slammed forward. The gun was live again. She's good. Keep firing. The gunner didn't need to be told twice. Mac ran back to his position, made it 3 steps before something hit him in the shoulder. Not a bullet. Shrapnel from a grenade. Not deep. But it hurt like hell. He ignored it, reached his gun, started firing again. The second wave lasted longer than the first. 30 minutes of sustained combat. 30 minutes of hell. When it broke, Mac's hands were shaking from fatigue. His shoulder burned. His ears had stopped ringing and started just hurting. But his guns were still firing. His men were still fighting. Ammunition count, he shouted. The reports came back. They'd burned through nearly 7,000 rounds, more than 2/3 of their supply. And the night wasn't even half over. Mac wiped sweat from his eyes, checked his weapon. The barrel was glowing dull red in the darkness. Still functional, but for how much longer? He looked at position 2, saw Ironside doing the same check, saw the worry on his face. They made eye contact across the darkness. No words needed. Both men understood. The guns were failing, not all at once, not catastrophically, but incrementally, surely. The heat was warping them. The continuous fire was stressing metal past its limits. They were running out of time. "Nate!" Mac called. The kid appeared, face blackened with powder smoke, eyes wide but steady. "Yeah, Sarge. How's your gun?" "Hot. Real hot. Starting to get some feed issues. Can you keep it running?" "For now, but I don't know how much longer." Mac looked at the jungle, at the darkness where the Japanese were regrouping, preparing their next attack. He looked at his 5 guns, already showing signs of stress, already beginning to fail. He looked at his 2 spare barrels, only 2, and he made a decision. "Nate, get me Doc and Ironside, right now." They gathered around him. 3 men in the darkness, 3 men who knew what was coming. "Listen to me," Max said quietly. "Our guns are failing. Not all at once, but they're failing. By the next wave, maybe the one after, we'll start having catastrophic failures. Jams we can't clear. Barrels so warped they won't shoot straight. Feed mechanisms that won't feed." "What do we do?" Doc asked. "I'm still figuring that out. But whatever it is, I'm going to need time. Time without distractions. Time to work." "Work on what?" Ironside said. Mac looked at the 5 guns, at the spare barrels, at all the individual components that made up a Browning M1917. An idea was forming. Crazy. Impossible. The kind of thing no one had ever tried because no one had ever been desperate enough. "If I can't keep 5 guns running," he said slowly, "maybe I can keep 3 guns running by using parts from the broken ones." They stared at him. "You want to cannibalize the guns?" Ironside said. "Mix and match parts. Why not? A barrel is a barrel. A bolt is a bolt. If position 2's barrel is shot, but its feed mechanism works, and position 4's feed mechanism is broken, but its barrel is good." "That's insane," Doc said. "Those parts aren't interchangeable. They're fitted to each specific weapon. They're all the same model, same specifications. Close enough might be good enough. And if it doesn't work, then we're no worse off than we will be in an hour anyway when everything breaks at once." Ironside and Doc exchanged glances. "How long would you need?" Ironside asked. "I don't know. 30 minutes. Maybe more." "Mac, we can't hold off another attack for 30 minutes with just rifles, not against what's coming." Mac knew he was right. But what choice did they have? Then the sound came again. From the jungle. That terrible, unmistakable sound. "Banzai, Banzai, Banzai." The 3rd wave. Larger than both previous waves combined. 5,000 men. Maybe more. Coming at them with everything they had. Mac looked at his friends. At these men who'd followed him into hell and trusted him to lead them out. "Okay," he said. "New plan. You 3 hold them off. I'll work on the guns. 30 minutes. That's all I need." "With what?" Nate demanded. "We can't stop that many with rifles." "You're gonna have to. Because if I don't fix these guns, we're all dead anyway." The Japanese were closer now. He could see them. Thousands of shadows flowing toward them like a dark tide. Ironside grabbed Mac's shoulder, looked him in the eye. "You better be right about this." "I'm not right. I'm desperate. But desperate is all we got." He turned to his gun crews. "Fall back to secondary positions, rifles only. I need the guns clear." "Sarge, what are you? Do it now." They fell back, taking their rifles, taking their ammunition, leaving the 5 machine guns silent and empty. Mac stood alone among the weapons. 5 Browning machine guns, some working, some failing, all critical. The Japanese were 200 meters away, closing fast. He dropped to his knees beside the first gun, started unbolting the barrel. His hands were steady, his mind was clear. He had 30 minutes to do the impossible, 30 minutes to save them all. Behind him, rifle fire erupted, Doc, Ironside and Nate trying to hold back a human wave with bolt-action rifles. Mac ignored it, ignored everything except the metal in his hands and the problem in front of him. The barrel came free, hot enough to burn. He didn't care. He had work to do. The night was just beginning. The rifle fire behind Mac was continuous, desperate. 3 men trying to hold back a tide with buckets. "They're getting closer." Nate's voice cracked with fear. Mac didn't look up, couldn't look up. His entire world had narrowed to metal and mechanism, to the problem in front of him that had exactly one solution he hadn't found yet. Gun 1, barrel warped from sustained fire, unusable. But the recoil mechanism, the heart of the weapon, was perfect. Springs tight, bolt smooth. Gun 2, barrel still good, cool enough to function. But the feed mechanism was destroyed. The pawls that grabbed each cartridge and pulled it into the chamber had broken under stress. Mac's brain worked like his father's sewing machine, pattern matching, problem solving. Every machine followed logic. Every breakdown had a cause. Every cause had a solution. If you understood the logic. He unbolted Gun 1's barrel, set it aside. The metal seared his palms, but he barely felt it. Pain was irrelevant. Time was everything. 15 minutes, maybe less, before the Japanese overwhelmed the rifle line. He moved to Gun 2, started disconnecting the barrel assembly. His fingers flew through motions he'd practiced 1,000 times in daylight, now executing them in darkness by feel and muscle memory. A grenade exploded 30 meters away, close enough to shower him with dirt. He didn't flinch. Gun 2's barrel came free, still warm but functional. He carried it to Gun 1's receiver, started the connection process. "Mac," Ironside's voice, raw with strain. "We can't hold them. 10 more minutes. We don't have 10 minutes. Then make them." The barrel threads didn't quite align. Different guns, different tolerances, microscopic variances that shouldn't matter but did. Mac forced it. Muscle against metal. The threads caught, stripped slightly, caught again. He torqued the barrel nut with strength born of desperation. It locked. Not perfect, but locked. He'd created a hybrid. Gun 1's receiver and recoil system. Gun 2's barrel. Would it work? Only one way to find out. Mac slammed in a fresh belt of ammunition, charged the weapon, aimed into the darkness where muzzle flashes showed Japanese positions, pulled the trigger. The gun roared. 20 rounds. Smooth, clean. The hybrid held. He'd done it. "Doc, position 1 is live. Get on it." Doc ran from his rifle position, threw himself behind the gun, started firing. The change was immediate. Rifle fire was harassment. Machine gun fire was devastation. But Mac had no time to celebrate. 4 more guns to fix. And now he understood the problem, understood the solution. He could do this. He would do this. Gun 3. The locking mechanism kept jamming after every 5th round. The bolt wouldn't return to battery. Mac tore into the weapon with hands that had stopped feeling pain. Somewhere behind him, Nate screamed. Not in fear, in fury, the sound of a man who'd found courage in the worst possible moment. Mac pulled the bolt assembly free, examined it by feel. Carbon buildup. Thick, crusty. The jungle humidity had turned powder residue into concrete. He scraped it clean with his knife. Aggressive. Brutal. Precision was a luxury he couldn't afford. He needed functional, not perfect. The carbon came away in chunks. He blew on the mechanism, clearing debris, then reached for his rifle oil. Empty. Of course it was empty. They'd been fighting for 3 months. Everything was empty or broken or held together by prayer and spite. He needed lubrication, needed something slippery to reduce friction. His mind raced, cataloguing options, dismissing impossibilities, searching for anything that might work. Then he remembered. Gun oil and rifle oil came from the same source. Petroleum, hydrocarbons. Any oil would work, any grease, any liquid lubricant. But they had none. Wait, they had one source of liquid. One thing every man carried with him. One thing that was always available. "Ironside," Mac shouted. "Your canteen, bring it here. We're out of water. I don't need water." "Then what?" "Just bring your damn canteen." Ironside ran over, handed Mac the empty canteen, looked at him like he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. Mac unscrewed the cap, held it in one hand, used the other to unzip his fly. "Oh no," Ironside said. "Oh no, you are not. Got a better idea." "Mac, that's insane. That's chemistry. Urine contains urea. Urea breaks down carbon deposits, and the liquid reduces friction." He aimed at the canteen cap. "Now shut up and let me work." He urinated into the cap. Not much. Just enough to create a small pool of liquid. Then he poured it over Gun 3's bolt mechanism. The effect was immediate. The carbon deposits softened. The mechanism moved smoother. Not perfect, but better. Mac reassembled the weapon, chambered a round. Test fired. 3 shots. 4, 5, 6. The jamming was gone. "Position 3 is live. Nate, get on it." Nate abandoned his rifle position, took the gun, started firing with tears of relief streaming down his face. 2 guns working, 3 still dead. Mac moved to Gun 4. A flashback hit him. Unbidden. Unwanted. He was 15. Buffalo winter. His father's tailor shop. The big industrial sewing machine, the one that could punch through leather, had broken down. Again. Third time that month. They couldn't afford a repairman. Couldn't afford a new machine. "Papa, we need to replace it." His father had looked at him. Tired eyes in a lined face. Hands that never stopped moving. "Marco, what did I teach you? Everything can be fixed if you understand how it works." "And do you understand how this works?" Mac had studied the machine. Massive, complex, intimidating. "I think so." "Then fix it." "But Papa, So I had never tailored a suit before I tailored my first suit. I had never run a business before I ran a business. We learn by doing, or we don't learn at all." Mac had torn into that machine, took it apart piece by piece, laid everything out, studied the components, the relationships, the logic. It had taken him 6 hours.
But he'd found the problem. A timing issue. The needle and the shuttle weren't synchronized. He'd adjusted the cam, realigned the shuttle hook. The machine had run perfectly. His father had smiled, actually smiled, rare as summer snow. "You see, Marco, you understood the logic. The rest was just courage." The memory faded. Mac was back on Bloody Ridge, back in hell, but his hands never stopped moving. Gun 4's problem was different. The entire recoil system was loose. The heavy recoil spring had lost tension, overheated, deformed. He needed a replacement spring, but had none. Think. Gun 5 was completely dead. Total mechanical failure, but its recoil spring might still be good. Mac ran to Gun 5, tore into it with the efficiency of long practice, found the spring, pulled it free. It was longer than the spring in Gun 4. Wrong dimensions. Wouldn't fit. Unless. He grabbed his wire cutters, started cutting the spring, shortening it. The metal was hardened steel, difficult to cut. His hands ached. Blisters had formed and popped and formed again. He didn't stop. 2 coils removed. 3. He held the shortened spring against Gun 4's receiver, measuring by eye in the darkness. Close enough. He installed the modified spring, bolted everything back together. A hand grabbed his shoulder, spun him around. Doc's face was inches from his, blood running from a cut above his eye, expression wild. "Mac, we're out of ammunition for the rifles." "What?" "We're dry. Nothing left. They're 50 meters out and we're dry. 50 meters. Close enough to throw rocks, close enough to see faces." Mac looked at his 3 working guns, looked at Gun 4 in pieces in front of him. No time to finish it. No time for perfection. "Get back on the guns. All 3 of you pour everything into them. But do it." They ran. 3 men, 3 machine guns, against thousands. Mac turned back to Gun 4. His hands were shaking now. Fatigue. Blood loss from a dozen small cuts. The shoulder wound he'd been ignoring. Focus. He charged the weapon. The bolt slammed forward. Caught. Held. He pulled the trigger. Nothing. His heart stopped. He charged it again. Pulled the trigger again. Click. The modified spring wasn't strong enough. The bolt wasn't returning with enough force to fully seat. Gun 4 was dead. 30 meters. The Japanese were 30 meters away. Mac could see them clearly now, see their faces. Young men and old. Determined. Desperate. Just like him. 3 machine guns fired continuously, creating a wall of lead, cutting down men like wheat before a scythe. But 3 guns weren't enough. The Japanese were flowing around them, finding gaps, getting closer. 20 meters. Mac abandoned Gun 4, moved to Gun 5, the one with total mechanical failure. No recoil system, no feed mechanism, just a barrel and a receiver and prayer. Could he make one more hybrid? He had minutes, maybe seconds. His hands moved, disconnecting, evaluating. His brain processed information faster than thought. Pattern recognition, problem solving, logic. Gun 3 had a spare bolt assembly in its carrying case. Gun 5 had a functional barrel. If he could scream. Close. Too close. Mac looked up. A Japanese soldier had broken through the line, 10 meters away, bayonet fixed. Running straight at him. Mac had no weapon. Both hands full of machine gun parts. No time to reach for his sidearm. The soldier closed the distance. 5 meters. 3. A shot rang out. The soldier dropped, dead before he hit the ground. Nate stood behind his gun, smoking barrel still aimed at where the soldier had been, eyes wide with shock at what he'd just done. "Keep shooting!" Mac roared. Nate snapped back to his weapon, started firing again. Mac's hands were moving before his heart stopped racing, installing the bolt, connecting the feed mechanism. No time to test, no time to think. He slammed in an ammunition belt, charged the weapon, aimed at the mass of soldiers 15 meters away,
pulled the trigger. Gun 5 roared to life. Position 5 is live, but there was no one left to man it. Doc Ironside and Nate were all on their guns, all firing, all necessary where they were. Mac would have to shoot it himself. He got behind the weapon, started firing. Short bursts, controlled, targeting the flanking elements trying to get around their position. 4 guns now. 4 guns against thousands. The Japanese advance faltered, stalled. Men fell in waves. The killing zone before the Marine position became impassable with bodies. But Mac knew this was temporary. They'd regroup, come again, and when they did, his makeshift repairs might not hold. "Ammunition count," he shouted during a brief lull. The reports came back. Position 1, 300 rounds left. Position 3, 200. Position 5, 400. Less than 1,000 rounds total. Maybe 10 minutes of continuous fire. After that, they were done. Mac looked at the jungle, at the darkness where more enemy soldiers were gathering. He could hear them, reorganizing, preparing for another push. This wasn't over, not even close. "Ironside, yeah. The ammunition depot, 50 meters behind us. We need more belts. Mac, that area's under fire."
Anyone who goes out there.
"I know that's why I'm going." "Bullshit. I'll go. You're a better shot than me. We need you on that gun. And we need you alive." Mac was already moving, slung his rifle over his shoulder, started running toward the depot. The Japanese saw him immediately. Concentrated fire on the running figure. Bullets kicked up dirt all around him. Snapped past his head close enough to feel the wind. He zigzagged, using every bit of terrain, every depression, every fallen tree, moving like he'd been born to this. 40 meters, 30. A grenade exploded to his left. The concussion threw him sideways. He rolled, came up running. 20 meters. He could see the depot now. Wooden crates stacked under camouflage netting, each crate holding 4 belts of 250 rounds each. 10 meters. Another grenade. Behind him this time. Shrapnel sang past. Something hot grazed his leg. He stumbled, kept going. He reached the depot. Started grabbing ammunition belts, draping them over his shoulders. 4 belts. 5. 6. Each one weighing 5 kilograms. His knees buckled under the weight. 30 kilograms. Too much. He'd never make it back. But he had to try. He turned, started running, the weight pulling him down, slowing him, making him a perfect target. Bullets everywhere. One tugged at his sleeve, another knocked his helmet sideways. He kept his head down, kept moving. 30 meters, 20. His legs were screaming. The weight felt like it was crushing him, but he didn't stop. 10 meters. He dove, slid into the trench, landed hard, the ammunition belts clanging against each other. "Got it," he gasped. Got the ammo. Hands grabbed the belts, started distributing them to the guns. Mac lay there for exactly 5 seconds, catching his breath, letting his heart remember how to beat normally. Then he was up again, back to his gun, back to the fight. Midnight. The battle had been raging for 90 minutes. The 4th wave hit, larger than anything before. 8,000 men, maybe more, coming from 3 directions simultaneously. Mac's guns were holding, barely. The hybrid weapons were functioning, not smoothly, not perfectly, but functioning. Gun 1 started overheating again. The barrel from Gun 2, now mounted on Gun 1's receiver, was turning cherry red. "We need to cool the barrels," Doc shouted. Mac looked around desperately. No water, no oil, nothing. Wait, they'd used urine before, for lubrication. Why not for cooling? The idea was insane, disgusting, utterly desperate. Perfect. "Doc, Ironside, Nate, your helmets now." They looked at him. "Take off your helmets and bring them here." "Mac, what?" "Just do it." They obeyed. 3 helmets, steel bowls that could hold maybe half a liter each. "Everyone, listen to me." Mac's voice cut through the chaos. "We need to cool the barrels. We're out of water, out of oil, out of everything." "So what do we use?" someone shouted back. Mac took a breath. "Piss. We use piss." Silence. Even the gunfire seemed to pause. "I'm not joking, urinate in these helmets. Do it now. It's the only liquid we have." For a moment, no one moved. The idea was too absurd, too degrading, too impossible. Then Ironside started laughing, a deep, genuine laugh that shouldn't have been possible in hell. "You know what? Why the hell not?" He grabbed a helmet, started unbuckling his belt. That broke the spell. One by one, the Marines followed suit, embarrassed, horrified, but desperate enough to try anything. They filled 3 helmets, brought them to Mac. He grabbed the first one, looked at the steaming barrel of Gun 1, then poured the contents over it. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The liquid hit the superheated metal and flashed instantly to steam. A cloud of acrid vapor rose up. The smell was indescribable, but the barrel temperature dropped. dropped enough to buy them a few more minutes of firing time. "It works," Max shouted. "Keep bringing more." The technique was adopted immediately. Every few minutes, when a barrel got too hot, someone would bring a helmet full of urine. They'd pour it over the glowing metal. The steam would rise. The barrel would cool just enough. It was disgusting. It was desperate. It was brilliant. Years later, military historians would study this moment, this improvisation. Brennan's cooling method, they'd call it, a case study in adaptive thinking under pressure. But in that moment, it was just survival, just men doing whatever it took to stay alive one more minute.
The fourth wave broke at 100 hours, shattered against 4 machine guns and the determination of men who refused to die. The jungle fell silent again. Temporary. Fragile. Mac surveyed his position. All 4 hybrid guns were still functioning. Barely. They were held together by improvisation and will, by spare parts and shortened springs and barrels cooled with the only liquid available. But they were working. His Marines were still alive, exhausted, traumatized, but alive. "Casualty report," he said quietly. The reports came in, 3 more wounded, none dead, 17 Marines against thousands, still fighting, still holding. Ironside appeared beside him, blood on his face from a shrapnel cut, eyes hollow with fatigue. "We can't do that again," he said simply. "One more wave like that, and we're finished." Mac knew he was right. The ammunition was almost gone. The guns were on the verge of complete failure. His men were running on fumes. But dawn was still hours away, and the Japanese weren't done. How much ammunition left total? Maybe 500 rounds across all positions. 500 rounds. Against an enemy that had already sent 8,000 men and still had thousands more. The math was simple and brutal. They were going to lose. Unless... "Doc," Max said. "Come here." Doc stumbled over. 19 years old and looking 60. Harvard seemed like another lifetime, another universe. "What do you need? In your medical kit. You have morphine." "Yeah. A few doses." "Why?" "I need you to save them. Don't use them unless someone's dying. We're going to need clear heads until the very end." Doc understood. "You think we're going to get overrun?" "I think we're going to come damn close. When it happens, I need everyone sharp, everyone fighting, no one checking out because the pain's too much." "Mac, promise me." Doc looked at him, really looked at him, saw a man who'd already decided he wasn't leaving this ridge alive, who'd made peace with it, who was just trying to save as many others as he could. "I promise." Mac gripped his shoulder. "Good man." He turned to Ironside. "Henrik, that picture of your girls, I need you to give it to me." "What? Why?" "Because if things go bad, I want to make sure it gets back to them. I want them to know their father was a hero." "Mac, don't. Give me the picture." Ironside pulled out the waterproof pouch, opened it, looked at the photograph of his wife and daughters one last time, then handed it to Mac. "Tell them I love them. Tell them I was thinking about them at the end. You're going to tell them yourself." "No, I'm not. We both know that." Ironside's voice was calm, accepting. "This is where I die, Mac. I can feel it. Have felt it all night. Henrik, it's okay. I made my peace. I just need to know someone will tell my girls their father wasn't a coward." Mac's throat tightened. "They'll know. I swear it." They shook hands, held the grip for a long moment. Then the sound came again from the jungle. The sound Mac had been dreading. Banzai, banzai, banzai. The 5th wave, the final wave, everything the Japanese had left. Mac ran to his gun, checked the ammunition. 100 rounds. That's all he had. He looked at his 3 friends. Doc, Ironside, Nate. Men who'd followed him into hell. Men who'd trusted him to find a way out. "Listen to me," Mac shouted. "This is it. This is everything. We hold this line or we die trying. No retreat, no surrender. We are United States Marines and this ridge is ours." A ragged cheer went up, barely more than a croak, but real, defiant. The Japanese burst from the jungle. Not thousands this time, tens of thousands, the entire remaining force, a human tsunami. 4 machine guns opened fire, their last ammunition, their last strength, their last hope. The killing was mechanical, methodical. Point the gun at the mass of humanity, pull the trigger, watch them fall. Repeat. Mac's gun ran dry after 30 seconds. 100 rounds gone. He grabbed his rifle, started firing that. To his left, Doc's gun jammed. The feed mechanism, the one Mac had Frankensteined from 3 different weapons, finally gave up. Doc dropped behind the gun, started firing his pistol. To his right, Nate's gun overheated catastrophically. The barrel warped so badly it split. Nate fell back, drew his knife, prepared for close combat. Only Ironside's gun was still firing, the last machine gun, the last thing keeping the Japanese from overrunning the position. Ironside fired in long, sustained bursts, discipline forgotten, doctrine abandoned, just pouring fire into the mass, buying seconds with bullets. His gun ran dry, the bolt locked back, empty. Ironside stood up, drew his pistol with one hand, his knife with the other. "Come on!" he roared at the approaching enemy. "Come on!" They came, a wave of soldiers, 20 of them, breaking through the defensive line.
Headed straight for the gun positions. Ironside met them head-on, shot one, stabbed another, fighting like a man possessed, like a man with nothing left to lose. Mac was running toward him, rifle empty, drawing his own pistol, trying to help. He was 10 meters away when he saw the Japanese soldier behind Ironside, saw the bayonet, saw it thrust forward. "Henrik!" Too late. The blade punched through Ironside's abdomen, deep, fatal. Ironside made a sound, not a scream, almost a sigh. He dropped his pistol, but his knife hand kept moving, grabbed the soldier's throat, squeezed. They went down together, Ironside on top, choking the life out of his killer, even as his own life bled out. Mac reached them, shot 2 more Japanese soldiers, dropped to his knees beside his friend. Henrik, stay with me." Ironside looked up at him, blood on his lips, the light already fading from his eyes. "Tell them," he whispered. "Tell my girls. I will. I swear I will." "Good." Ironside smiled. Actually smiled. "It's okay, Mac. I'm going home." His eyes closed. His breathing stopped. Henrik Castellano, 32 years old, husband, father, Marine, dead on Bloody Ridge. Mac had no time to grieve. More soldiers were coming. He stood, fired his pistol until it was empty, grabbed Ironside's rifle, kept fighting. Around him the position was collapsing. Doc was down, wounded but alive. Nate was fighting hand to hand. The Japanese were everywhere. This was it, the end. They'd done everything humanly possible and it wasn't enough. Mac prepared to die. Hoped it would be quick. Hoped someone would remember what they'd tried to do here. Then he heard it. A new sound. Beautiful. Impossible. Artillery. American artillery. Bull Parker had called it in. Danger close. Right on top of their own position. A last desperate gamble. The shells screamed overhead, detonated in the jungle, among the Japanese, among the Americans. Indiscriminate. Devastating. The concussion knocked Mac down. Dirt rained on him. His ears stopped working. His head rang like a bell. When he looked up, the Japanese were retreating, running, breaking. The artillery had shattered their final attack. Silence. Blessed, impossible silence. Mac lay on his back, looking at the stars, wondering if he was dead. "Mac," Doc's voice. The kid had survived. "Mac, we did it. We held." Had they, Mac, tried to process this, tried to understand how they were still alive? He turned his head, saw the 4 machine guns, silent now, broken. But they'd done their job, saw the ammunition crates, empty. Every single round fired, saw the bodies, American and Japanese, mixed together in death, saw Ironside, still, forever still. The sun was rising, pink light touching the horizon, dawn after the longest night. They'd held, somehow, impossibly, against all odds and logic, they'd held. Mac closed his eyes, let the tears come, for Ironside, for all the dead, for the simple miracle of seeing another sunrise. Bull Parker found him like that, weeping quietly in the growing light, surrounded by guns held together with genius and desperation. "Sergeant Brennan." Mac looked up. "Sir, you held the line." "We held the line." Bull looked at the carnage, at the improvised repairs, at the evidence of what had happened here. "What you did tonight, what you built, that's going to be studied for years." Mac shook his head. "I didn't do anything special, sir, just refused to quit." "That's the most special thing there is, son." Mac stood slowly, every muscle screaming. He walked to Ironside's body, closed his friend's eyes, took the photograph from his pocket. "I'm sorry, Henrik," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." But Ironside was already home, already at peace. The battle for Guadalcanal would continue for months, but the battle for Bloody Ridge was over, and somehow against everything the Marines had won. Morning light revealed the true cost.
1,200 Japanese bodies lay before Mac's position, stacked in places, filling the killing zone like a grotesque carpet. Along the entire defensive line, 3,000 more. The Imperial Japanese Army had thrown everything at Henderson Field and broken against American steel and determination. Mac sat among his 4 hybrid machine guns, hands burned, shoulder bleeding, every muscle screaming, but alive. Doc moved among the wounded, 19 years old and working with the calm efficiency of a surgeon twice his age. The fear was gone now, replaced by purpose. Nate lay on a stretcher, face pale, right leg mangled below the knee. He'd survive, but he'd never walk the same. "Hey, Sarge," Nate whispered when Mac knelt beside him. "Hey, kid. We made it." "Yeah, we made it. Tell Mary. Tell her I'm coming home." "You'll tell her yourself." Nate smiled weakly. Then the morphine took him. Mac stood, looked at the body under the poncho 20 feet away. Henrik Castellano, Ironside. A Marine stood guard there, young, respectful, understanding he was watching over a hero. Mac approached slowly, knelt, lifted the poncho edge. Ironside's face was peaceful, almost smiling. The picture of his daughters was still clutched in his hand. Mac carefully removed it, placed it in his own pocket, right over his heart where Ironside would have kept it. "I'll make sure they know," Mac said quietly. "I'll make sure everyone knows." The weapons officers arrived at noon. Major Thomas Hensley and 2 captains, specialists in ordnance and firearms. They'd heard the stories, came to see for themselves. They found Mac sitting against a tree, hands wrapped in bandages, staring at nothing. "Sergeant Brennan." Mac looked up, stood slowly. "Sir, we'd like to examine your weapons, if that's acceptable." "Of course, sir." They walked to the gun line. 4 Browning M1917s, silent now, cooling in the tropical heat. Hensley approached the first weapon, studied it. His expression changed from professional interest to genuine astonishment. "This barrel. It's from a different weapon." "Yes, sir. Gun 2's barrel. Gun 1's receiver." "That's... The tolerances shouldn't allow that. The threads... I forced them, sir. Stripped them slightly, but it held." Hensley moved to gun 3, examined the bolt mechanism, sniffed it, recoiled. "What is that smell?" "Urine, sir. Field expedient carbon solvent and lubricant." "You're joking." "No, sir. We were out of everything else." The major moved to gun 5. This one was the most Frankensteined. Parts from 3 different weapons. A shortened recoil spring, a feed mechanism held together with wire. "This shouldn't work," Hensley said. "Theoretically, this is impossible. But it did work, sir. All night. 4 guns. Against 20,000 men." Hensley looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the burns, the blood, the exhaustion. "Sergeant, what you did here. I've been studying weapons for 20 years. I've never seen anything like this." "Just refused to quit, sir." "No. It's more than that. You understood these weapons at a level most armorers never reach. You saw solutions nobody else would have seen." "My father taught me, sir. Everything can be fixed if you understand how it works." "Your father was right." Hensley pulled out a notebook. "I'm documenting everything. These techniques, these repairs. We'll incorporate them into training manuals. Other Marines need to know this is possible." Mac felt nothing. No pride, no satisfaction. Just emptiness where Ironside used to be. "Whatever helps, sir." The interviews came next. Bull Parker, Colonel Merritt Edson, even General Vandergrift himself. All wanted to hear the story. All wanted details. Mac told them, mechanically, without emotion. The guns started failing. He improvised repairs, used urine for lubrication and cooling, ran through fire to get ammunition. The soldiers tried to break through. Ironside died. Artillery saved them. Simple, clinical, like describing maintenance procedures. Bull Parker saw through it. "Mac, you did something extraordinary last night." "We all did, sir. I'm recommending you for the Medal of Honor." Mac looked at him. "Sir, I don't—" "It's not a request, Sergeant. It's recognition for what you accomplished. You held a critical position against impossible odds. You saved hundreds of lives. You displayed valor, ingenuity, and leadership beyond anything I've witnessed." "Ironside displayed valor. He died for it. And he'll be recognized too. But you kept everyone else alive." "That matters, Mac." Mac said nothing, just nodded. What could he say? That he didn't feel like a hero? That he felt like a fraud? That real heroes like Ironside were dead while he survived? None of it would change anything.
May 1943, 8 months later. Mac stood in dress blues before a crowd of thousands. Australian Memorial, Canberra, General Alexander Vandergrift pinning the Medal of Honor to his chest. The citation was read. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. It detailed everything: the repairs, the cooling method, the ammunition runs, the defense that saved Henderson Field. It said he killed 38 enemy soldiers. Though Mac didn't remember counting, it said he displayed extraordinary heroism. Though Mac just remembered being scared. The medal was heavy, blue ribbon, bronze star. It felt like a lie hanging around his neck, but he accepted it. For Ironside, for Nate, for all the men who'd fought beside him. The crowd applauded, cameras flashed. He was a hero now, whether he wanted to be or not.
The war bond tour was worse. City after city, speech after speech, smiling, shaking hands, selling bonds, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, everywhere the same, crowds, questions, admiration he didn't deserve. Tell us about Guadalcanal. What was it like facing 20,000 Japanese? How did you think of using that method to cool the guns? Mac answered, politely, briefly, trying to honor the memory of men who couldn't speak for themselves. But inside he was dying. This wasn't him. He wasn't a symbol. He was a mechanic who got lucky. A sergeant who survived when better men died. In Philadelphia, he visited a Browning factory, met the engineers who designed the M1917. They wanted to hear everything, every detail of the repairs, the improvisations. Remarkable, one engineer said. You essentially hot-rodded our weapons in combat conditions. I did what I had to, sir. And the urine cooling method. We've tested it. It actually works. Not ideal, but in field conditions with no alternatives. The engineer shook his head admiringly. Brilliant. Desperate, sir, not brilliant. Sometimes they're the same thing. Mac shared recommendations. Barrel overheating was the primary failure point. Could they improve heat dissipation? Use different alloys? The engineers listened, took notes. Some modifications would be implemented in future production runs. At least something good came from it. July 1944. Camp Pendleton, California. Mac was teaching now. Weapons instructor, showing young Marines everything he'd learned. How to field strip a Browning blindfolded, how to diagnose problems by sound, how to make emergency repairs with minimal tools. The gun is your responsibility, he told them. You keep it running, it keeps you alive. The Marines listened with religious attention. They were being taught by a legend, the mad mechanic of Guadalcanal. Mac hated the nickname, but it stuck. After class, a female Marine approached. Sergeant Eleanor Moretti, Women's Marine Corps, dark hair, intelligent eyes, confident bearing. Sergeant Brennan, I wanted to thank you. For what? Your testimony to Congress last month about allowing women in combat support roles. It meant something, coming from you. Mac remembered the hearing. Politicians asking stupid questions, him giving blunt answers. Just told the truth. Women can do the job as well as men. Saw plenty of female ordnance techs and medics doing excellent work. Still, from a Medal of Honor recipient, it carries weight. They talked. About the Marines, about the war, about everything except combat. Elena understood something others didn't. She never asked about Guadalcanal, never wanted war stories, just talked to him like he was a person, not a symbol. They started having coffee, then dinner, then long walks on the beach where Mac could almost forget the nightmares. 3 weeks later, he proposed. You sure about this? Eleanor asked. I'm not easy. I'm a Marine. I have a career. I'm not going to be a housewife waiting at home. I know. That's why I'm asking. They married in July. Small ceremony. A few friends. Doc flew out for it. Still working as a combat medic. Still saving lives to make up for the one he couldn't save. Nate sent a telegram from Kansas. Married to Mary now. Farming with a prosthetic leg. Living the life Ironside never got. The happiness lasted 3 weeks. Then Mac couldn't take it anymore. I have to go back, Mac told Elena. They were in bed. She'd known this was coming. Seen it building. Back to the Pacific. Yes. You already did your part. More than your part. You could stay here. Teach. Be safe. I can't. Those kids I'm training, they're heading into combat. I taught them everything I know. Now I need to be there with them, to make sure they come home. You can't protect everyone, Mac. I have to try. Eleanor was quiet for a long time. If you go back, you might not come home. I know. And you're going anyway. I have to. If I stay here safe while they die, I couldn't live with that. She turned to face him, tears in her eyes, but voice steady. I'm a Marine too. I understand duty. I understand honor. But Mac, I just found you. I don't want to lose you. He held her. You won't. I promise. It was a lie. They both knew it. But some lies are necessary. December 1944. 27th Marine Regiment, 5th Division. Mac was back in the Pacific, assigned to Charlie Company as weapons instructor. But everyone knew he'd see combat again. The target was Iwo Jima, a volcanic island 8 square miles of hell. 22,000 Japanese troops dug into tunnels and bunkers. General Kuribayashi commanded the defense. The smartest Japanese general Mac had never met. He'd abandoned Banzai charges. Instead, every foot of the island was pre-sighted for artillery. Every cave was a fighting position. Every tunnel connected to 3 others. It would be the bloodiest battle of the Pacific War. Mac trained Charlie Company with everything he had. You're going to be scared, he told them. Everyone gets scared. The difference between a coward and a hero is what you do about it. Don't freeze. See a target, shoot it. See a problem, fix it. No thinking, just doing. You don't fight for flags. You fight for the man beside you. You keep him alive, he keeps you alive. That's all that matters. The young Marines worshipped him. Mac, the mad mechanic, the legend who'd held Bloody Ridge with 4 guns and sheer stubbornness. Private First Class Jimmy Walsh, 19 years old, asked him one night, Sarge, you ever scared any more after everything you've been through? Mac thought about Ironside dying in his arms, about the nightmares, about waking up every night in cold sweat. Every single day, Mac said. But you keep going, because if I don't, some of you won't come home, and I can't live with that. Walsh nodded slowly, understanding something important. That courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was doing the right thing despite the fear. February 19th, 1945. D-Day, Iwo Jima. Mac hit Green Beach in the 3rd wave. 09:30 hours. The black volcanic sand was like walking through tar. Each step required effort. Vehicles sank to their axles. Men struggled to move forward. The beach was chaos. Landing craft beached and unloading. Marines running. Officers shouting orders barely heard over the surf. For the first 10 minutes, Japanese resistance was light. Scattered rifle fire, a few mortars. Then Kuribayashi's plan revealed itself. Every gun on the island opened fire simultaneously. Artillery, mortars, machine guns, all pre-sighted, all devastating. The beach became a slaughter. Men fell everywhere. Medics were hit trying to reach wounded. Landing craft were destroyed trying to retreat. Mac hit the sand, crawled forward, reached a small depression that provided minimal cover. Around him, Charlie Company was being torn apart. The Marines he'd trained, the kids who'd trusted him. Walsh took shrapnel to the chest. Went down hard. Mac crawled to him, checked the wound. Bad. Really bad. Doc! Mac screamed. But there were too many wounded, not enough medics. Walsh grabbed his hand. Sarge, did I do okay? You did great, kid. Tell my mom. Tell her I wasn't scared. You tell her yourself. You're going to make it. Walsh smiled weakly, stopped breathing. Mac closed his eyes. Another one. Another good kid who'd never see home. He looked inland, saw the problem immediately. 3 Sherman tanks were stuck in the sand, engines roaring, tracks spinning, going nowhere. Without armor support, the infantry couldn't advance, and trapped on the beach, they'd all die. Mac ran, through the fire, to the first tank. The commander's head popped out. We're stuck, sand's too soft. I can fix it, keep the engine running. Mac dropped to the ground, started digging around the left track. The sand was black, hot, coarse. He pulled metal plates from a destroyed Amtrak, slid them under the track, creating a surface with traction. Try now. The tank lurched forward, caught, moved. It's working. Mac ran to the second tank, repeated the process, metal plates under the tracks, digging with hands that were already bleeding. A mortar round hit 20 feet away. Shrapnel peppered his back. He felt the impacts, ignored them. The second tank broke free. One more. He reached the third tank, started digging. A Marine corporal ran up. Sergeant, we need to... The mortar hit directly on the corporal. No warning, no time to react. The man simply ceased to exist. Mac was covered in blood, not his own. He kept digging. The third tank broke free. All three rolled forward, providing cover, allowing the infantry to advance. Mac stood, looked at his hands, bleeding, burned by hot metal, covered in someone else's blood. Guadalcanal, again, but worse.
1100 hours. Mac's platoon was pinned down by a concrete bunker. The pillbox was pouring machine gun fire across their approach route. 6 Marines had already died trying to flank it. "We need to take it out," Lieutenant Morrison shouted. Mac studied the bunker. Firing slits, reinforced concrete, probably connected to the tunnel system. Direct assault was suicide, but they couldn't stay here. "Give me 3 men and a satchel charge," Mac said. "That's suicide. So is staying here." Morrison handed him the satchel charge, 20 pounds of C2 explosive, enough to crack the bunker. Mac picked 3 volunteers. They moved left, using a depression in the terrain, getting within 30 feet of the bunker. "Cover fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1, now." The Marines opened up. Rifle fire against the bunker's slits, not effective but distracting. Mac ran, low, fast, the way he'd learned on Guadalcanal. The bunker's gun swung toward him. Too slow. He reached the side wall. Placed the satchel charge against the base. Set the fuse. 30 seconds. He ran back. Dove into the depression. The explosion was enormous. Concrete chunks rained down, smoke and dust everywhere. When it cleared, the bunker was cracked open. The gun silent. Mac's platoon advanced. 11:45 hours. Mac saw them. A squad of Marines advancing toward a minefield. They didn't know. No markers. No warnings. The point man was about to step on a mine. Mac was 40 meters away. "Stop minefield. Too much noise." They didn't hear. He started running, waving his arms. "Stop mines." The point man saw him. Stopped, confused. Mac reached them, breathing hard. "Minefield. I can see the disturbed sand. The trigger prongs. You would have walked right into it." "Jesus," the sergeant said. "Thanks, Sarge. I'll lead you through. Follow my steps exactly." Mac moved forward, reading the sand, looking for the telltale signs. Slightly different coloration, subtle depressions, the indicators only an experienced eye could spot. Step, step, step. Each one careful, each one measured. The squad followed. 15 men, trusting him completely. They were halfway through. Mac was scanning the ground ahead. Then he heard it. Distant, but distinctive. Artillery. Incoming. He looked up, saw the shell arcing down, saw exactly where it would land. 5 meters behind him, right where the squad was walking. He had 1 second, one choice. Warn them and watch them die trying to run through a minefield, or keep leading them forward and pray. Keep moving, don't stop. The shell hit. The world exploded. Mac didn't feel pain. That came later. First was pressure, like being hit by a truck. Then light. Brilliant. Blinding. Then nothing. He woke up on his back. Ears ringing. Vision blurred. Tried to move. Couldn't. Something wrong. Everything wrong. Faces appeared above him. Marines. Young faces. Scared faces. "Sergeant Brennan. Stay with us." Hands on him. Checking wounds. Applying pressure. Mac tried to speak. Coughed blood instead. Corman. He could see the sky. Blue. Beautiful. Peaceful. Funny. It didn't hurt much. He thought dying would hurt more. He thought of Elena. Her face. Her smile. Her voice telling him not to go. "Sorry, Elena. I tried." He thought of Ironside. Of Nate. Of Doc. Of all the men he'd saved. Did I do enough? Did I make it matter? He thought of his father. "Everything can be fixed, Papa. Except this." The faces above him were crying. Why were they crying? He led us through the minefield. Saved all of us. Somebody do something. "There's nothing we can do. The wounds." Mac understood. He was dying. Really dying this time. It was okay. He'd done his job, kept his promise, protected his Marines. Ironside was waiting. Maybe they'd have that beer they'd always talked about. The sky was fading, light becoming soft, warm. He heard music. Or maybe that was just memory. His mother singing when he was young. The faces disappeared. The noise stopped. Marcus Brennan, 27 years old, Medal of Honor recipient, the mad mechanic of Guadalcanal, dead on the black sands of Iwo Jima. But 15 Marines walked off that minefield alive because of him. In the end, that was enough. The telegram arrived in California 3 days later. Elena read it once, twice, 3 times. The words didn't change. "The Secretary of the Navy regrets to inform you." She didn't cry. Not then. Marines didn't cry. She folded the telegram carefully, placed it in her pocket, right over her heart, where Mac would have kept it. Then she went to work, because that's what Mac would have done. The grief could wait. Doc heard while treating wounded on the hospital ship. He set down his instruments, walked to the rail, stared at the island where his best friend had died. "I should have been there," he said to the ocean. "I should have saved you." But Mac had died doing exactly what he'd always done, protecting his Marines, refusing to quit. Doc made a decision. He'd spend the rest of his life saving people. Every patient he healed would be a tribute to Mac. It was the only way to say thank you. Nate heard on his farm in Kansas. He sat in his wheelchair, the prosthetic leg leaning against the wall, and wept. Mary held him while he cried. "He saved me," Nate said. "On Guadalcanal. He saved all of us, and I couldn't save him." "He knew the risks," Mary said gently. "He chose to go back. He always chose the hard thing, the right thing, even when it killed him." Nate dried his eyes, looked at his daughter, 3 years old, playing in the Kansas sun. "I'm going to tell her about him, about Uncle Mac, about what real courage looks like. She should know. Everyone should know." May 1945. Mac was awarded the Navy Cross posthumously. The citation described his actions on Iwo Jima, the tanks he freed, the bunker he destroyed, the minefield he navigated. His extraordinary heroism and unwavering devotion to duty reflected the highest credit upon himself and the United States Naval Service. Elena accepted the medal, stood before more cameras, more crowds. "My husband was a mechanic," she said. "Not a warrior. He fixed things. Machines. Problems. Lives. He saw something broken and couldn't walk away until he fixed it. That's why he went back. Not for glory, not for medals, because there were young men who needed him, and he couldn't abandon them. That's who Marcus Brennan was, a man who refused to quit, who refused to let others die if he could prevent it, who understood that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's doing what's necessary despite the fear." She paused, composed herself. "He saved hundreds of lives, at Guadalcanal, at Iwo Jima, in training camps across America. Every Marine who learned from him, who survived because of what he taught them, that's his legacy. Not the medals, not the recognition, the lives. That's what mattered to him. And that's how I'll remember him. Not as a hero, as a good man who did what was right when it was hard." The crowd applauded, but Elena barely heard it. She was thinking of 3 weeks. 3 weeks of happiness before duty called him away. 3 weeks, and a lifetime of what might have been. June 1945. The war ended. The techniques Mac developed were incorporated into training. Brennan's field repair methods became standard curriculum. Generations of armorers studied his improvised cooling systems, his parts-swapping procedures, his adaptive problem-solving under fire. Military academies taught case studies, how one sergeant held a critical position with 4 hybrid machine guns and desperate innovation. The story became legend. The mad mechanic who refused to quit, who built weapons from scrap metal, who saved Henderson Field with genius and courage. But those who knew him remembered something else. A quiet man from Buffalo, who learned from his father that everything could be fixed, who saw Marines as family, who chose duty over safety every time, who died the way he lived, protecting others. Present day, Marine Corps Base Quantico, Virginia. Sergeant Instructor Williams stood before a class of recruits. "Today we're going to talk about Sergeant Marcus Brennan. Some of you might know him as the Mad Mechanic of Guadalcanal. Others might know him from Iwo Jima." He held up a photograph, black and white. A young man in dress blues, Medal of Honor around his neck. Expression serious. On the night of October 24, 1942, Sergeant Brennan and 15 Marines faced 20,000 Japanese soldiers. 5 machine guns against impossible odds. When the guns started failing, and they did fail, Brennan didn't quit. He improvised. He adapted. He used parts from broken weapons to build functioning weapons. He used unconventional cooling methods when conventional options weren't available. He ran through enemy fire 3 times to retrieve ammunition. He fired a 30-pound machine gun from his hip. He did everything necessary to hold that line. His innovations saved hundreds of lives that night. and his refusal to quit inspired every Marine who fought beside him. Williams paused, made eye contact with each recruit. But here's what matters most. Brennan wasn't special. He wasn't a superhuman. He was a mechanic from Buffalo who understood two things. First, every problem has a solution if you're willing to think creatively. Second, you never abandon your brothers. Never. That's why he went back to combat after receiving the Medal of Honor. Not for glory, because young Marines needed him, and he couldn't live with himself if he stayed safe while they died. On February the 19th, 1945, Sergeant Brennan led 15 Marines through a minefield on Iwo Jima. An artillery shell killed him, but all 15 Marines survived because he'd done his job, protected his men, one last time. Williams set down the photograph. Some of you will face impossible situations where doctrine doesn't work.
Where everything goes wrong, where quitting seems like the only rational choice. When that happens, remember Marcus Brennan. Remember that courage is doing what's necessary when you're terrified. That innovation is finding solutions everyone else missed. That brotherhood means you never quit on each other. That's his legacy. Not the medals, not the glory, the example, the standard. A recruit raised his hand. Sergeant Instructor, do you think we can be like him? Williams smiled. You already are. You volunteered for this. You chose duty over comfort. You're willing to sacrifice for something bigger than yourselves. Brennan would be proud. Raritan, New Jersey. The statue. Bronze, life-size, showing Marcus Brennan kneeling beside a machine gun, tools in hand, expression focused. The inscription reads, SGT Marcus Mac Brennan, United States Marine Corps, 1916 to 1945, Medal of Honor, Navy Cross. He understood that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's necessary despite the fear. He never quit. He never abandoned his brothers. That's why we remember him. Every year on February 19th, Marines gather here, old veterans and young recruits. They stand silent, paying respects. Some leave challenge coins, others leave flowers. One year someone left a set of wrenches, tools for the mechanic who fixed everything. Elena visited every year until she died in 1998. 53 years of widowhood. She never remarried. Said once was enough when it was the right person. Doc visited when he could. Dr. Declan Ashford eventually ran a VA hospital. Saved thousands of lives. Never forgot the sergeant who taught him courage. Nate visited in a wheelchair, then with a walker, then not at all. But his children came, his grandchildren, keeping the memory alive. And every year more Marines learned the story. More warriors understood what real courage looked like. Not the absence of fear, the refusal to quit despite it. Not superhuman strength, human determination pushed beyond limits, not fighting for glory, fighting for the person beside you. That was Marcus Brennan's legacy. That was why 80 years after Guadalcanal Marines still said his name with reverence. The mad mechanic who refused to quit, who built the impossible, who saved hundreds, who died protecting his brothers. Who understood what mattered most. In the end, it wasn't the guns he fixed or the enemies he killed or the medals he earned. It was the lives he saved. The Marines who came home because of him. The example he set that inspired generations. That was enough.
That was everything.